The desperate call of the silence of deep space pressed against the hull of communication station Epsilon 7, like a living thing. Lieutenant Sarah Chen sat hunched over her control panel, the soft blue glow of her screens painting tired shadows across her face. Her coffee had gone cold hours ago, but she barely noticed. The night shift at the edge of human space was usually quiet, filled with routine maintenance checks and the occasional supply ship requesting docking clearance. But tonight was different. The first signal came through at 0247 hours, cutting through the background static like a knife. Sarah straightened in her chair, her trained ears immediately recognizing the distress frequency. She adjusted her headset and leaned forward, fingers dancing across the communication controls. This is Epsilon 7, receiving emergency transmission. Please identify yourself and state your situation. She spoke into her microphone, her voice clear and professional despite the hour. The response came through broken and filled with interference, but Sarah could make out enough to understand the severity of the situation. The voice was distinctly non-human, with the melodic tones characteristic of the Zephyrian species. Human station. This is Captain Veltar of the research vessel Kethmara. We are trapped in the Crimson Nebula, coordinates 847 Deltanine. Our ship has suffered critical system failures. Life support is failing. We have 7 crew members aboard, including 2 younglings. PLEASE. We need immediate assistance. Sarah felt her heart rate spike. The Crimson Nebula was a notorious hazard zone, filled with radiation storms and electromagnetic anomalies that could fry ship systems in minutes. She'd heard horror stories about vessels that ventured too close and were never seen again. Copy that, Kethmara. Can you give me details on your situation? How long has your life support been compromised? Sarah asked, already pulling up star charts on her secondary screen. Approximately 6 of your hours, came the strained reply. Our atmospheric processors are operating at 30% capacity. Our engineer estimates 12 hours of breathable air remaining, possibly less if we cannot restore power to the primary systems. Sarah's fingers flew over her keyboard, accessing the Colonial Fleet database. She needed to find any available rescue vessels in the sector. The search results made her stomach sink. The nearest patrol ship was 18 hours away, and even that assumed they could travel at maximum speed through safe space lanes. Kethmara, I'm checking for available rescue units. Can you tell me what caused your systems to fail? Sarah asked, trying to keep her voice steady. We were conducting research on the nebula's electromagnetic properties, Captain Veltar explained, his voice growing weaker as the connection deteriorated. Our shields failed when we encountered an unexpected radiation surge, the same surge that damaged our engines and navigation systems. We are essentially dead in space, and the nebula's interference prevents us from signaling for help on most frequencies. Sarah made rapid calculations on her screen. Even if a rescue ship left immediately, it would take them nearly a day to reach the nebula's edge, and that was assuming they could even penetrate the radiation field safely. Most standard vessels couldn't survive the journey through the nebula's core where the Kethmara was trapped. I'm going to contact Colonial Fleet Command, Sarah told the alien captain. Hold on, we're going to figure this out. For the next 3 hours, Sarah worked frantically. She contacted every available resource she could think of. The Colonial Fleet was sympathetic but realistic. They didn't have any ships equipped to handle the nebula's radiation levels. The closest heavy cruiser with adequate shielding was over 40 hours away. Local mining corporations politely declined citing the extreme danger to their crews and equipment. Each negative response felt like another nail in the coffin of the Zephyrian crew. As dawn approached in the station's artificial day cycle, Sarah found herself staring at a list of crossed-out options. She'd exhausted every official channel, every favor she could call in, every possible resource. The Cathmara situation was deteriorating rapidly, and there seemed to be no solution. Epsilon 7, this is Cathmara, came Captain Veltar's voice, noticeably weaker than before. Our oxygen levels have dropped to critical. We estimate perhaps 8 hours remaining. Have you... Have you found anyone who can reach us? Sarah closed her eyes, fighting back the tears that threatened to come. She'd been trained to handle emergency situations, but nothing had prepared her for the helplessness of watching people die while being unable to help them. Cathmara, she began, then stopped. She couldn't lie to them, but she also couldn't bring herself to destroy their last hope. I'm still working on it, Captain. Don't give up on us yet. The next few hours passed in a blur of desperate attempts. Sarah contacted research stations, private cargo haulers, even military contractors. Each conversation ended the same way. Expressions of sympathy followed by explanations of why a rescue was impossible. The Crimson Nebula was simply too dangerous for standard vessels to navigate. By mid-morning, Sarah was exhausted. She'd been on duty for nearly 15 hours straight, but she couldn't bring herself to leave her post. Every few minutes, she checked in with Captain Veltar, each conversation revealing their increasingly dire situation. The Zephyrian crew was conserving oxygen by staying in their smallest compartment, speaking in whispers to preserve air. The two younglings had stopped their frightened crying hours ago, now too weak to make much sound. Sarah, Captain Veltar, said during one of their check-ins, using her first name for the first time, I want you to know that your voice has been a great comfort to us. To know that someone out there cares enough to keep trying, it means everything. Sarah wiped away tears she hadn't realized were falling. Don't talk like this is over, Captain. I haven't given up yet. Nor have we, Veltar replied softly. But if the worst should happen, please know that we are grateful. The human spirit of never abandoning those in need is remarkable. Our people will remember this. The weight of responsibility pressed down on Sarah's shoulders, 7 lives hanging in the balance, and she was their only connection to hope. She returned to her screens with renewed determination, searching through databases of every registered vessel in 3 sectors, looking for something she might have missed. It was then that she noticed something unusual in the traffic logs. A ship designation she didn't recognize. Phantom, registry unknown, Captain A. Rodriguez. The vessel had passed through the sector 2 days ago, but hadn't followed any of the standard shipping lanes. More intriguingly, it had requested detailed information about the Crimson Nebula's radiation patterns. Sarah's pulse quickened. She opened an emergency broadcast on all frequencies, abandoning protocol in her desperation. This is Lieutenant Sarah Chen, Communications Officer at Station Epsilon 7, broadcasting on all emergency frequencies. We have a critical rescue situation. In the Crimson Nebula, 7 crew members of the Zephyrian vessel Cathmara are trapped with failing life support. All conventional rescue attempts have failed due to radiation hazards. If there is any vessel capable of nebula penetration in range, please respond immediately. Time is running out. She repeated the message 3 times, then sat back in her chair, staring at the speakers. The seconds ticked by with agonizing slowness. Static filled the air, broken only by the usual background chatter of merchant vessels and patrol ships going about their routine business. Just as Sarah was about to broadcast the message again, a new voice cut through the static. It was human, male, with a slight accent she couldn't place. Epsilon 7, this is Captain Alex Rodriguez of the vessel Phantom. I copy your emergency broadcast. What's the exact situation with the trapped vessel? Sarah nearly fell out of her chair. She grabbed her microphone with trembling hands. Captain Rodriguez, thank God. We have a Zephyrian research vessel trapped in the Crimson Nebula. Coordinates 847 Delta 9. They've been without proper life support for nearly 10 hours. Critical systems failed after a radiation surge. Every rescue vessel we've contacted says the nebula is too dangerous to penetrate. There was a pause. Then Alex's voice came back, calm and steady. I'm familiar with the area. What's their current status? Less than 8 hours of oxygen remaining. 7 crew members, including 2 younglings. Captain, I have to ask, do you have the capability to reach them? The radiation levels would destroy most ships. Another pause, longer this time. Sarah could hear background noise that sounded like systems being activated. Asterisk. My ship has specialized shielding designed for extreme environment operations. I'm currently 12 hours from your position, but I can reach the nebula's edge in about 6 hours if I push the engines. The real question is whether they can hold out long enough for me to navigate through the nebula and reach them. Sarah felt hope bloom in her chest for the first time in hours. Captain, are you sure about this? The colonial fleet classified this as a no-go zone. I can't ask you to risk your life for strangers. Alex's response was immediate and firm. You're not asking, Lieutenant. I'm volunteering. Send me everything you have on their position and current status. I'm already changing course. As Sarah transmitted the data packets, she couldn't help but wonder who this mysterious captain was and why he was willing to attempt what trained rescue professionals had deemed impossible. But those questions could wait. Right now, 7 lives depended on his success. Data received. Alex confirmed. I'm going to try something that's either brilliant or completely insane. Probably both. Keep monitoring their status and maintain an open channel. If I'm going to navigate through that radiation maze, I'm going to need your help coordinating from the outside. Understood, Captain. And Alex, Sarah said, using his first name instinctively. Thank you. Whatever happens, thank you for trying. Save the thanks for when I bring them home, Lieutenant. See you on the other side. The channel went quiet, leaving Sarah alone with her screens and the distant sound of the Kethmara-S weakening transmissions. But for the first time in hours, she felt something other than despair. Someone was coming. Someone who was willing to risk everything for 7 strangers lost in the void. She looked at her chronometer and began calculating distances and travel times. If Captain Rodriguez was right about his speed, he would reach the nebula's edge just as the Zephyrian crew entered their final few hours of life support. There would be no margin for error, no second chances, but there was hope. Asterisk, the shadow pilot captain, Alex Rodriguez, guided his ship through the void with the precision of someone who had spent half his life dancing between the stars. The Phantom responded to his touch like a living thing, its experimental hull gleaming with the soft blue glow of its adaptive shielding system. Most pilots would have called what he was attempting suicide. Alex called it Tuesday. His communication system crackled to life as Lieutenant Chen's voice filled the cockpit. Phantom, this is Epsilon 7. I have updated readings from the Kethmara. Their oxygen levels are critical, maybe 5 hours remaining. How's your approach looking? Alex studied the sensor readings displaying on his main screen. The crimson nebula stretched before him like a vast, roiling storm of crimson and gold. Its electromagnetic storms creating patterns that would have been beautiful if they weren't so deadly. I'm seeing the outer edge markers now, Lieutenant. The radiation signature is intense, but my shielding should handle it. I've navigated worse storms than this. That wasn't entirely true, but Alex had learned long ago that confidence could be just as important as capability in life or death situations. He activated his ship's specialized systems, watching as power readings shifted and his hull began to adapt to the changing environment ahead. Captain, I have to ask. Sarah's voice came through with obvious concern. What kind of ship are you? Flying. The colonial fleet's best vessels can't handle this level of radiation exposure. Alex smiled grimly as he adjusted his approach vector. The Phantom is a prototype, Lieutenant. Let's just say it was designed by people who thought conventional. Limitations were more like suggestions. The hull can adapt its molecular structure to absorb and redirect various forms of energy, including radiation. It's never been tested in conditions quite this extreme, but that's what makes life interesting. As the Phantom entered the nebula's outer layers, Alex felt the familiar sensation of his ship's systems responding to external threats. The hull shimmered and shifted, its adaptive plating reconfiguring itself to deflect the increasing radiation bombardment. Warning lights flickered on his control panel, but they remained in the acceptable range. Phantom, be advised that the Kethmara's captain reports they're experiencing power fluctuations. Sarah's voice carried a note of urgency. Their remaining systems are starting to fail. Copy that. I'm picking up their emergency beacon now. Distance approximately 47 kilometers and closing. Alex's hands moved across his controls with practiced efficiency, fine-tuning his approach through the nebula's chaotic energy patterns. Tell Captain Veltar that help is coming. Sometimes that's enough to keep people fighting a little longer. The deeper Alex penetrated into the nebula, the more spectacular and dangerous it became. Streams of charged particles created curtains of light that danced across his viewports, while electromagnetic storms erupted without warning, sending shock waves through space that made his ship shudder. His adaptive shielding worked overtime, constantly adjusting to new threats and energy signatures. How did you learn to fly like this? Sarah asked during a brief lull in the turbulence. I've never heard of a pilot willing to navigate conditions like these. Alex was quiet for a moment, navigating around a particularly intense radiation pocket before responding. I used to be a test pilot for experimental military vessels. Spent years pushing the boundaries of what ships could do and where they could go. After the war ended, I found that civilian life didn't offer quite the same opportunities for creative problem solving. What he didn't mention was the real reason he'd left military service. 3 years ago, his squadron had been forced to abandon a civilian transport caught in an enemy attack. Orders were orders, and they'd retreated to safe distance while dozens of innocent people died. Alex had followed protocol perfectly and hated himself for it ever since. When Sarah's desperate broadcast reached him, he'd seen a chance for redemption. Phantom, I'm reading massive energy fluctuations in your area. Sarah's voice carried new worry. Are you still okay in there? Define. Okay, Alex replied as his ship rode out another electromagnetic storm. The Phantom is performing beautifully, but I can see why the colonial fleet classified this as a no-go zone. The energy patterns in here are like nothing I've encountered before. He adjusted his sensors, focusing on the Kethmara's position. The Zephyrian vessel appeared on his screens as a dark silhouette against the nebula's glowing backdrop, its hull scarred and blackened from radiation exposure. Alex could see that their shields had completely failed, leaving them defenseless against the environment that was slowly killing them. "I have visual contact with the Kethmara," Alex reported. "She's taken a beating, but the hull appears intact." Moving to docking position now, the approach required every bit of Alex's skill and his ship's capabilities. The nebula's energy fields created pockets of intense turbulence, while radiation storms erupted without warning. His adaptive shielding worked constantly, shifting and adjusting to protect both ships as he maneuvered the Phantom alongside the crippled Zephyrian vessel. "Kethmara, this is Captain Rodriguez of the rescue vessel Phantom. I'm moving to establish docking connection. Is your airlock system still functional?" Captain Veltar's voice came through weak but filled with amazement. "Captain Rodriguez, we can hardly believe you are here. Yes, our emergency airlock is still operational, though we are running on backup power only. That's all we need. Prepare your people for immediate evacuation. My ship can accommodate all 7 of you, but we need to move quickly. The longer we stay in this radiation field, the more risk we all face." Alex engaged his ship's magnetic docking clamps, feeling them lock onto the Kethmara's hull with a solid thunk. His airlock systems cycled through their sequence, establishing a pressurized connection between the two vessels. Through his sensors, he could monitor the crew as they prepared for transfer. The first to come aboard was one of the younglings, a small Zephyrian child who couldn't have been more than the equivalent of 8 human years old. Alex knelt down to greet her, offering what he hoped was a reassuring smile. Despite their different species, fear and relief were universal expressions, and he could see both in her large, dark eyes. "It's okay, little one," he said softly. "You're safe now." The rest of the crew followed quickly. Captain Veltar was the last to board, and Alex could see the weight of responsibility and exhaustion in the alien captain's bearing. Veltar was tall, even by Zephyrian standards, with the blue-tinted skin and flowing features characteristic of his species. His uniform was stained and torn, but he carried himself with dignity despite their desperate circumstances. "Captain Rodriguez," Veltar said, clasping Alex's hand in the traditional Zephyrian greeting. "Words cannot express our gratitude. We had accepted that we would die in this place. Save the thanks until we're clear of the nebula," Alex replied, though he was moved by the alien captain's obvious emotion. "Everyone secure. We have a rough ride ahead of us." Once his passengers were safely secured in the Phantom's cabin area, Alex began the delicate process of disengaging from the Kethmara and preparing for the journey out of the nebula. The research vessel would have to be abandoned. There was no way to tow it through the radiation storms, but Alex noted its position carefully. Perhaps a properly equipped salvage team could retrieve it later. "Epsilon 7, this is Phantom. I have all 7 crew members aboard and am beginning exit procedures. The Kethmara's research data has been downloaded to my systems per Captain Veltara's request." Sarah's voice came back, filled with relief and amazement. "Phantom, this is incredible. Are they all in good condition?" "They're weak and dehydrated, but alive and stable. The younglings are responding well to the improved atmosphere and pressure. Captain Veltar tells me they were researching something important when they got trapped." "Yes," Captain Veltar interjected from behind Alex. "We were studying the Nebula's unique properties. The electromagnetic patterns here could revolutionize our understanding of energy manipulation. The research data we gathered could benefit both our species immensely. Alex smiled as he navigated through another radiation storm. Well then, that makes this rescue even more worthwhile. Science and 7 lives, saved in one trip. Not bad for a day's work. The journey out of the nebula proved just as challenging as the approach, but Alex's confidence grew with each successfully navigated hazard. His ship's adaptive systems had learned from the inbound trip, adjusting more quickly to new threats and energy signatures. The Phantom carved its way through the cosmic chaos like it was born for this kind of extreme environment. "You know," Alex said to Captain Velta as they cleared the nebula's outer boundary, "your research into electromagnetic manipulation, how close were you to practical applications?" "Very close," Velta replied, his voice gaining strength. As they moved into safer space, "We believe we've found a way to create adaptive shielding that could protect ships in extreme environments. Perhaps even allow safe passage through areas like the Crimson Nebula." Alex laughed, the sound carrying genuine amusement. "Captain, I think you're going to be very interested in meeting my ship's designers. The Phantom's adaptive hull technology might be exactly what you were trying to develop." "Phantom, this is Epsilon 7. Sarah's voice interrupted their conversation. "I have you on sensors, clear of the nebula and heading home. Medical teams are standing by, and I've notified the colonial fleet of your successful mission. Captain Rodriguez, what you've accomplished today is nothing short of miraculous. Just doing what needed to be done, Lieutenant. Though I have to admit, it feels good to use these skills for something constructive again." As the Phantom approached Station Epsilon 7, Alex reflected on the day's events. 7 lives saved, valuable scientific research preserved, and perhaps, most importantly, a chance to prove that sometimes one person willing to take a risk could make all the difference. The military had taught him to follow orders and accept limitations, but today had reminded him that the best of humanity often emerged when people chose to ignore those limitations in service of something greater. Captain Rodriguez, Captain Rodriguez, Captain Veltar said as they prepared for docking, "If you ever find yourself in Zephyrian space, you will be welcomed as a hero. What you have done today will not be forgotten by my people." Alex nodded, touched by the alien captain's sincerity. "Just promise me you'll put that research to good use. If it can prevent other crews from getting trapped like you were, then this whole crazy adventure will have been worth it." As the Phantom settled into its docking berth at Station Epsilon 7, Alex could see Lieutenant Sarah Chen waiting in the observation deck, her face bright with relief and gratitude. 7 Zephyrian crew members were about to breathe freely again. Valuable scientific knowledge had been preserved, and one former military pilot had found a new purpose in the vast darkness between the stars. Sometimes the best rescues weren't performed by official vessels with proper authorization and unlimited resources. Sometimes they were carried out by one person with an experimental ship and the refusal to accept that some things were impossible. The universe was vast and dangerous, filled with hazards that could claim lives without warning. But it was also populated by beings willing to risk everything for strangers, to push beyond accepted limitations when lives hung in the balance, and to prove that hope could survive even in the darkest void. As Alex powered down his systems and prepared to meet the people he'd helped save, he smiled. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities to test the boundaries of what was possible, and he'd be ready for them. Asterisk.